I would like to call upon our head of school, Mr. Pradeep Sharma, to address the gathering.
Greeting from Wockhardt Global School, India, parents, guests, and my dear students. Today, we are proud to present MYP 2022 Personal Project Exhibition. The IB MYP is a challenging framework that encourages students to make practical connections between their studies and the real world. The MYP is a 5-year program which is inclusive by design for students of all interests and academic abilities. Created to inspire passion for learning while challenging intellectual curiosity, encouraging inquiry, and maximizing individual potential. The community of learners, parents, students, and staff share responsibility for developing lifelong learners, an active, compassionate world citizen with a genuine commitment to effect positive change in the world. The personal project encourages students to practice and strengthen their approaches to learning, ATL skills, to consolidate prior and self specific learning, and to develop an area of personal interest. The personal project provides an excellent opportunity for students to produce a truly personal and often creative outcome to demonstrate a consolidation of their learning in the MYP program. The project offers many opportunities for differentiation of learning and expression according to the student's individual needs. The personal nature of this project is important. The project revolves around a challenge that motivates and interests the individual student. Each student develops a personal project independently. MYP projects are student centered and age appropriate, and they enable students to engage in practical exploration through a cycle of inquiry, action, and reflection. MYP projects help students to develop the attributes of IB learner profile, provide students with an essential opportunity to demonstrate ATL skills developed through the MYP, and foster the development of independent lifelong learning. Today, our third batch of MYP5 is going to showcase their experience of personal project on their chosen topic. Today's MYP 2022 Personal Project Exhibition is demonstration of how we at Wockhardt Global School have continued the learning cycle even after tough pandemic times. I would like to congratulate teacher mentors and parents for their persistent support to make it happen. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Kindly note that the attendees have been muted to avoid any voice disruptions, and the chat box is open for any questions or comments. These questions and comments will be discussed after every presentation in the question answer session. Education is a very important aspect in our lives as it helps us decide a successful future. A lot of people struggle to learn, but that doesn't mean they won't succeed in life, right? Let us have Jyotika, whose personal project will guide you through the learning disorders of children, their struggles, and tips to overcome them.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Jyotika, and I'll be presenting my personal project presentation, which is Education for All. So at the start of our personal project, we had to pick 3 ideas that we could possibly choose as our personal project. And these are my 3 ideas. The first one was to create a booklet about learning disorders. I would then print the booklet out and put it in our school library to spread awareness about learning disorders in our school community. The second was to create a guide to personality tests. So I would conduct an investigation with a number of students or people and then write a report about it to help other people know which personality test is more better, accurate, and efficient than others. And the third was to create mandala drawings, which is a specific type of drawing about turtles. I would then take pictures of them and post it on different online platforms in order to spread awareness about plastic pollution in ocean. And the idea that I chose as my personal project was to create booklet about learning disorders. The reason why I chose this project is because learning disorders are neurological disorders, and neurological is my passion. I specifically chose to make it about learning disorders because learning disorders, I have seen other people as a student struggle with studies that other people, including me, can do very easily. Now, then the teachers would tell the children to not stop being immature and stop acting naughty. And the other students may also start teasing or bullying the child for not being able to do the task properly. But now the child may be struggling at that specific task because he or she may be having a learning disorder. But because of the lack of awareness about learning disorders around people, the child's learning disorder would worsen as time goes by. The learning goal of my personal project was to learn in depth about the most common learning disorders. Now, the reason why I chose to make it about the most common learning disorders is because there are many different types of learning disorders. And at this age, I won't be able to learn in depth about all of them. This is why I chose to make it about the most common so that I would be able to help more people. And therefore, my product goal was to create a booklet or a handbook about the disorders. While researching for information about learning disabilities in order to write it into my book, I would be fulfilling my learning goal and then in the end, fulfilling my product goal. The sustainable development goal of my personal project was peace, justice, and strong institutions. I want people with learning disabilities to be treated exactly just like people who don't have any learning disabilities, because learning disorders only interferes with the child's ability to learn. It doesn't affect the child's IQ. Therefore, why should they be treated differently? And of course, there's a strong relationship between the parent and the teacher communities. The parent community would be taking care of the child who has a learning disorder and seeking treatments from medical professionals. And the teacher would also be helping the child in school specifically to improve the child's ability to learn in studies. And of course, equal rights would mean equal access to equal opportunities. They both should be treated equally. Next. The learner profiles in this personal project was knowledgeable as I engaged with the issue, which is the learning disorder itself and the lack of awareness about learning disorders in schools and parent and teacher communities. The second was principled as I had a strong sense of fairness and justice for people with LDs. And third was caring as I hoped that my booklet or the handbook would make a positive impact in the life of others. The area skills developed in this project were the self-management skills and the research skills. The self-management skills were mainly used in order to finish the whole personal project. So I had to organize the project, I had to have a strong control over my time, and of course self-motivation to actually sit down and get to finish the work. The research skills were mainly used to finish my product, which was the handbook about learning disorders. I had to research for information, record it, and also verify information to make sure that it's accurate information that I can actually include into my handbook and not misinformation so that I don't spread misinformation about learning disorders in the school communities. I also had to access information to be informed, which is my learning goal, to learn about learning disabilities and also to inform others through my booklet. I also had to evaluate the information, of course, to make sure that it is a proper, credible source I can use information from. So the method that I used to evaluate the sources was the CRAP method, which is C, currency, R, relevance, and there are two A's. So first is authority, second is accuracy, and P for purpose. Using this method, I evaluated the sources, mainly the secondary sources, and if they match the CRAP method evaluation, if they succeeded it, then I would use that source, the information from that source, into my booklet. And of course, I made bibliography and even added it at the end of my handbook to make sure I credit the sources I referred to. So now I'll be talking about what I did after I finalized my idea of my personal project. Next slide, please. Next. So after finalizing the idea, I made the success criteria. The success criteria is basically the outline of the final product. I made sure to make my success criteria very specific. If it's very specific, then I would have more clear idea on how my final product is going to look like. And if I have a more clear idea, then I would be more confident to which part or which way I should use in order to make my ideal final product. And then after the idea, after the success criteria and a little bit of planning, I made the action plan, which is the timeline of the making of the product. So I wrote the main actions and then some things to complete and also how much time it would be needed and then due date for each action. I had to be very, very specific since I had only 1 month to finish my personal project product. So making it specific, I completed each action by the deadline I put it to. And in the end, I was able to finish my final project product by the end of its final deadline. The primary and the secondary sources used in this product were a psychologist that I interviewed. So there was a relaxation time in our city where COVID restrictions were lifted or were a bit less strict. So I took it to advantage and me and my supervisor went to interview a psychologist. And I interviewed the psychologist right after I made the action plan. I asked the psychologist all the questions and doubts I had about learning disorders. So after all my doubts and questions were cleared, I started working on my product with a clear mind. I mainly use the secondary resources to find information about learning disabilities that I need to include into my handbook. The secondary sources that I mostly used were websites and articles, the credible, famous medical websites like WebMD, Understood.org, and the Healthline. I also referred to YouTube videos when I couldn't understand a part of information that was in a website or article. So I would look at which organization supports that specific learning disorder that I didn't quite understand, and then look at the YouTube video of it. The YouTube videos are more helpful than the articles and website as it has illustrations, drawings, and also medical professionals actually communicating naturally. So I referred to the YouTube videos. Okay then. And then the another secondary sources that I used was a book called Learning Disabilities by Richard Goldman. So I mainly referred this book for information that it had on how parents can help the child who has a learning disorder. I didn't refer this book for information about learning disorders, but on how parents can help kids who have learning disorders, because there's a part in my booklet or handbook that I have to include information on how parents and teachers can help the child who has that specific learning disorders. So that's how I refer this book for. And the main challenge that I faced in this personal project was the COVID-19 restrictions. So like I had mentioned, there was a relaxation period in our city, and I utilized it to interview a psychologist. But then after that relaxation period, things got worse, and so there were more COVID restrictions placed. Now, if I had more doubts, then I could have interviewed more psychologists to add more weight to my primary sources, and even visit our city libraries or big libraries that have wide variety of books, so that I could actually refer to physical copies of books about learning disabilities. So I would like to end this presentation by Annie Ford. A quote by Annie Ford, who said, "Learning disabilities cannot be cured, but they can be treated successfully. And children with LDs can go on to live happy, successful lives." And this is exactly the message I want to convey through my booklet or the handbook. People are born with learning disorders. They are neurological disorders. So that means the person who is born with a learning disorder will have that learning disorder for the rest of his or her life. That also means that the learning disorder will be affecting his or her life, even though not that much in his or her older years. But then if the people around the child knows about learning disorders and can specifically understand the child's learning disorder, and by giving treatments from medical professionals, depending on the learning disorder can be cured and treated successfully, and the child will be able to ace the school studies and also be successful in life. And this is the bibliography that I referred to in my personal project. These are the 20 sources. I referred to 40 sources overall in my personal project product. But then these are just examples of the 20 sources that I referred to. I refer to them in MLA8 format. And of course, as IB learners, we have to cite sources in order to give credit to the ones that we referred to. And one more. And so thank you so much for being such a good audience. I would like to show you my handbook, if you can see. So it has 50 pages, and this is the final printed copy of it. And I'm going to place this in the school library so that teachers and also parents of our school can read it, and thus I'll be spreading awareness about learning disorders. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now.
Thank you very much, Jyotika. I request the audience to post your questions in the chat box, and Jyotika will be more than willing to answer it.
I'm Vinekati from Ila Green School, and I have a question. So, is there any challenges faced apart from COVID?
All right, I pass on your question to Jyotika. Jyotika, the question says, is there any challenges faced apart from COVID?
Il y a une élève que j'ai vue,
There weren't any big main challenges faced apart from COVID-19 restrictions, but there was this tiny bit challenge that I had faced, which was the evaluation or the feedback I was getting for my product. So after my final product was done, I immediately sent it to my supervisor, the expert, and the psychologist that I had interviewed. The expert and the supervisor immediately sent me the feedback, but because the psychologist had a busy schedule, it was taking quite a long time for me to get her feedback. So that was a teeny bit challenge I faced for my product, but it didn't affect the final deadline or my final product. That's why I didn't include it in my challenges that I faced. Brilliantly said by Albert Einstein, creativity is seeing what others see and thinking what no one else has thought. Well, thinking out of the box is creating new thoughts that are unique and never before suggested in a given scenario. I would like to call my friend Prerita to share her personal project presentation.
The key to understanding the future is one word: sustainability. Hey everyone, I'm Prerita and this is my personal project journey. I love doing arts and crafts, making new things out of the waste ones, etc. Now, I'm interested in finding, seeing, and looking beauty in things, and that has always been a part of me. Since childhood, I felt the need to redecorate my room or use art and craft to redecorate any of the rooms to make it look different by increasing its aesthetic value. Now, I feel like each and every design has its own identity. It is different in its own special ways. Room decors, wall hangings, infrastructures, and all have always been fascinating to me. Some furnitures are superb in their looks but lack sustainability. Some of them are sustainable but are costly. So I thought, why can't we make something which is sustainable, eco-friendly, as well as cost-effective? Yes, that's my project. Through this project, I aim to learn interior designing and experience it, keeping in mind the materials, the budget, and most importantly, the time. I aim to make furnitures and interior designings using the waste paper course produced and renovate an entire room which is sustainable as well as cost effective. I honestly had no experience in interior designing, but which was a big challenge for me. But I had an artistic sense of designs and colors, which really helped me out throughout the project. Next slide. before I jumped on this project, I had many other ideas. My first idea was to take over the leftover fabrics from the old dresses and convert them into new dress designs. Then it was about making an app for learning sign languages to help the deaf population. And then it was about making, and then it was this project. So then after that, yes. So after doing the SWOT analysis of all of the projects, I came to the conclusion to start this one. But still, there was a slight confusion between this one and the first one. But then, after going into the depth of the topics and researching more on the topics and discussing it with my coordinators and supervisors, we came down to a conclusion to stay on this topic and continue forward. So like for the material used to make furniture nowadays have been proven toxic and dangerous to the environment. My project mainly focuses on making eco-friendly furnitures and decorations to renovate an entire room, which can contribute to sustainable living, but at affordable costs. Next. The next. Next. So as I mentioned, I had no experience in interior designing at first, but and so as I mentioned about the lack of experience in interior designing, I had to take in some primary sources. So I thought of meeting people who were experts in this field. I interviewed an interior designer and told her about my project and my room plan. She really helped me out for making the best use out of the paper course and also helped me take my room plan to the next level. I also referred some secondary sources, and to conduct relevant research, I had to use a proper method. So first, I gathered all the sources I found relevant, and then I used the OPVL process to evaluate them. O for origin, P for purpose, V for value, and L for limitation. Here, I think I was lacking in research skills, but then after using the OPVL process, I could find relevant and more appropriate sources for my project. Now, at the beginning of the project, while I was making my timeline, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I wasn't so sure about the dates or months for meeting up people, conducting surveys, conducting interviews, or buying supplies, etc. But then after that, when there was a little when the situation was a little handled, that is the time when I went on and took my interviews with the interior designers. And at first, I took the project very lightly. I didn't pay much attention towards it. But then during the Diwali vacations, I realized that I was lacking in my time management skills and I had to develop them. So I started to gear up, but it wasn't enough. And then again in Christmas vacations, I effectively used my time and developed my time management skills to work on my project. And at the beginning of the project, I was also a little weak in communication skills and social skills, but through communicating with people, conducting surveys, conducting interviews, I gained the confidence now to explain them about my product. And yes. So the biggest problem I faced during the project was to stick the paper course together. I tried 4 types of glues. It wasn't sticking, and I even tried to stick them together with a rope, but it wasn't looking nice. Then an idea struck my mind to drill them together with screws, and that idea actually worked. And now for the product, I made a lot of change in plans. My room plan was completely different at first, and now the final product is completely different from what I had thought. So yeah, this is a little glimpse of my final product. This was the room before, and this is the room after. Next. This is just a pic of the room to get a clear view. And then I evaluated my project on the basis of my success criteria. I got 27 responses till date. And in a brief, I can say that my project was successful. And most of the people voted it for being eco-friendly, sustainable, cost-friendly, as well as for good quality. But the improvements can be made. Yes, next. As an IB learner, I acknowledge the sources I used. These are some of the sources cited in MLA8 format. A paper coal factory where there are various paper rolls lying around here. Now, these are the paper rolls which, because of some technical errors, are not being supplied to the customers, which is known as the waste rolls. Now, while thinking of a sustainable future, I thought of making a well-functioning room using these paper rolls to make furnitures and decorations. So luckily, I had a room which was not being used because of its appearances. Now, this is the room. I started out with painting the walls and decided to make it a little aesthetic, and thus decided to make out a design on the wall. Then the main process of constructing the furnitures began. I first constructed the chairs, then the couch, the tables, and then the flower pots. And this is the final product. Um, yes, yes, that's it. Thank you for being such a good audience, and please feel free to ask questions.
Thank you, Prerita. I request the audience to unmute yourself and pose questions to Prerita.
So, how many hours did you spend on this project?
The painting of the room and all took me 4 or 5 days together, and the furniture and all took me over 10 to 12 days. So it was about 17 to 18 days of work.
To ask you, what is the durability of the product? After all, it is made up of paper roll only, no?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, it is a lot more durable than one can think. I even tested it out with water, and you can see the final product. I even tested it out when with water, but it was dry till the next day.
Right.
And this is like a short one of the furniture. Can you see the furniture?
Yes.
This is the table, the flower pot, and the chair. So you can see it's usable and durable. Okay.
Yes, Prerita, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Prerita. We'll move ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Now, it doesn't matter who you love, where you love, when you love, how you love. It only matters that you love. And this is a quote. This is a quote by John Lennon, and inspired by his words, Srinidhi here wrote a novel, and I would like to invite her to speak about her project. Over to you, Srinidhi.
Hello, everyone. Another one. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Srinidhi, and welcome to my personal project presentation. So about myself, I'm Srinidhi, a book lover since young. I've always been fascinated by what a book could do, the wonders it could create. And that fascination turned into a passion, and passion to an obsession. Since a very young age, to be precise, from 7-year-old, I started reading my books, writing novels, not exactly novels, but stories and poems. And now, for my personal project, I chose to write a novel, choosing my passion over everything else. Next slide, please. What exactly is a personal project? Before I start off anything about my personal project, I think it's important for you to understand why this is important for me. As it is a platform for me to show our, for us IB students to perform and showcase our talents, I thought this would be a perfect platform for me to show what I think is the most important bit in my life itself. It's literature, basically. And that is why I chose to write this. Well, for my personal project, before we start off anything, we had to think of ideas. And I had quite a few, to be exact. But these ideas are my main ideas. The first four main ideas, to be exact. The first one was a comic on Greek mythology, specifically on the story of Zeus and Hera. And the second one was the booklet on importance of history. And third one was an acceptance of third genders, specifically homosexuals. And the fourth one was a novel on equal rights for women and self-love. My final idea I chose as like a book on a novel on acceptance of third genders, more on homosexuals. Well, why did I choose this? The reasons are simple. Out of all, because there are already a lot of books on self-love and equal rights for women. Comics on Greek mythology is way out of my reach. I am not artistic at all, and history, or like a booklet on history, I mean, no matter how much I'm into the subject, no matter how passionate I'm about it, let me accept it. I confess it, history could be boring sometimes, and I did not want my project to be boring. Next one, please. Well, before I start off anything about my personal project itself, I'd like to give you a quote. I like to give you a quote. A quote is, "We are not what other people think we are. We are what we know we are and what we love, and that's okay." This is a quote by Larix Crocs, a third gender activist. My book is basically based on the story of two girls, lesbians, let's say, who fell in love with each other. 17-year-olds walking through the society, experiencing discrimination. How is their life? Well, that's basically what it is. As I already said why I chose this, like the three main reasons why I chose this. And the first one, as I've already said, is because of my passion of writing. And the second one was to bring equality, equal rights, and awareness of how bad a closed mind society is on ourselves and the future. And the third one is like to learn more about the 1980s, which was a time period right after the 1960s, which was when the impact happened. Where like the black got their rights, the women got their rights, and the gays got their rights. The Stonewall Inn was read, and more like that in the United States. A fact is, in United States alone, 3.5% of the population belongs to the LGBTQ community. LGBTQ is a short form for lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders, and queers, and many more. Next one. And this is a graph of showing the LGBTQ community members all around the world. And my second and third steps were where I actually did something related to the book and writing about it. This is my timeline. In IB, we already know that time management skill is a very important skill. And along with this project, I figured out that I had a challenge when it came to time management. My learning goal and product goal are what I said before. My learning goal was to learn more about the writing skills when it came to novels, and to learn more about the the 1980s and how the society was during the time. And my product goal was to write up a novelette during the timeline of 1980s in the United States, which is exactly what my learning goal is. My global context are fairness and development. Why I chose this is because the strands of communities and relationships within goes with what I want, and equal opportunities across. My STDs were 5 and 16. 5 was gender equality, and 16 was peace and um, peace, peace and justice. My ATL skills I've developed in this was social skills because we had to do a lot of communication and speak and interact when it came to research. And time management skills, I really lacked that, as I said before. Now I developed it through the project. I've learned how to be an open-minded individual in the society through the project, along with a reflective person. My success criteria, it includes aesthetics, cost, target audience, which are the ages of 14 to 20, because we are the next generations, like they say it presently, and we are the future. And if I have a target audience of 14 to 20, it is what I'm going to impact. And the impact I have on them could probably be the future's impact too. Creating new open-minded people and society with your open-mindedness is what my product goal, my product goal was. And so, please. Environment and size were also few of my success criteria, part of my success criteria. Next one, please. My sources, I have a primary source and a secondary source, as everyone else. My primary source was an author. He was also my mentor. He helped me through it a lot, and he specifically taught me on how to improve with my skills, along with my supervisor, who is an expert in literature herself. She helped me through it as well. And my secondary sources were websites teaching on about 1980s, newspapers and journals from 1980s, and a book from the 1980s itself. I had 2 books on lesbian theme specifically. The first one was The Color Purple, and the other one was One Last Stop. Next one, please. And my conclusion. I had a great time doing this project, and I am extremely grateful that I got to do it. And I really, really hope my book could create an impact. And I've got responses from 15 people by the date, and they all said my success criteria matches exactly with what my book is. Although they suggested me to change the size of my book, I mean, it's a full-on novel. It had 500 pages in it. Special mentions to my supervisor and my mentor, who helped me and guided me through it really well. Without their patience and support, I would have not completed my project. Next one. Any questions?
How did you manage the time for writing novel?
Actually, that was one of my challenges, as I said before. I was actually rushing my novel, and due to the change of ideas, many of them, and failures and writer blocks, I barely managed to finish it. I had to your question was how did I manage it? I mean, even I do not know. I had to spend sleepless nights over the time and just scribble down ideas whenever I got them and arrange them later, and I did them through the time. I mean, that is all I actually did. The timeline I followed was only useful when it came to the actual research, and writing it was, I set a day goal of writing at least 100 words related to the book every day, and then add it up to the main book itself and edit it all. Half the interest of gardening includes the exercise of imagination. Let us invite Vidur to tell us how he used his imagination to find out more on the soilless agricultural technique of hydroponics and how it impacted him. Over to you, Vidur.
Good morning to one and all present here. I am here to share you my journey of personal project. So let me start by telling you something about myself. So I'm Vidur Agrawal and I'm currently in MYP 5 and I'll start by telling you some of my hobbies. I like playing sports, I like listening to music, I like watching movies. But the thing I like the most is gardening. Yes, it's a hobby which I picked up when I was a toddler and I like doing it since then. One day, while I was searching for some tools online, I found about a technique called hydroponics. The technique struck me and I started searching about it. Um my curiosity generated about it, and then I thought, why shouldn't I go for it as my personal project? Obviously, I had some other ideas before deciding on it. So my first idea was an app for a business. As I have a family business, I decided that I would make a app that would do all the accounting and keep the staff management algorithms on it. The second idea was hydroponics, and the third idea was make a tennis tutorial. I play tennis from a long time, and I thought I could help some beginners to learn some tricks. Uh, but I narrowed down my topic using the SWOT analysis, and after doing it, I realized that the strengths and opportunities is the most in hydroponics. Even it's the most challenging one for me. So I thought that I would go for it, and it would be a great process. So let me start you by telling you about something about hydroponics. So hydroponics, as we call it, the art of gardening without soil. So basically, hydroponics is a technique where plants are grown mainly using water. There's no role of soil, and there's a system called a big system in which plants are grown. It's not a very famous technique, but people are adapting it all over the world, and people have started to know about it, and the awareness is spreading about it. The only thing that is a drawback in this technique is that the setup of this technique is very expensive. So it's not pocket friendly, and people cannot afford it to do at their homes. So what I thought was, what could be my goal in doing this project? So I came up with my goals. I thought my learning goal would be to learn about this technique and how could I help people with it. So I decided to make a product which would be cost efficient and would be suitable for home gardeners to use hydroponics at their home, as it is not available anywhere. So one of the major things that I thought about while doing this whole process was what perspective to look through these things. I tried looking it at from each point of view, but I thought that scientific and technical innovations would give me the perfect lens to see it, as it allows us to explore about the nature and its laws. So there was a time when I used to procrastinate a lot doing this project, and I couldn't meet my timelines. So I decided that I'm not on the right track, and I should. It's high time now, and I should start doing my things and get back on the track. So I sat down one day. I listed all the things I needed to do. I didn't want my timeline to be very specific within, so I made it according to week wise, and then I just wrote it down on the paper, and it really helped me to organize all my thoughts and even to meet the deadlines of my project. So one day while we were brainstorming in the class, one of my peers asked me like, "What would you consider as success? When will you know that you are successful in your project?" So I thought upon it a lot. I went home. I again sat down. I started listing down what I needed my project to be. I thought like why people should buy it from me, or why will it look convincing to people. Then I wrote all the things that I needed to be in that project. So That was the time I came up with my success criteria. Once I was finished with it, I decided, yes, these all are the things. Once these are done, I will consider myself as successful. So main part of this project was researching upon it. As it was new to me as well, I had to research a lot upon it. So basically, I divided my resources into two parts, primary and secondary. So in the primary sources, I interviewed a few people from local uh, who were expert in that field and who were running big industrial plants in the same. I also referred to some research papers written by people, and I also took help of some of my friends who were doing their extended essays and IAs on the same topic. For the secondary resources, I used websites, videos, and books for videos like how to make setups at home or how could I make it more cost efficient. I mainly use the websites for gaining information on the topic as well as the book for the same. So this whole process was a skill development process. You could have noticed that in the whole presentation, I talked about a lot of skills. So I developed many skills while doing this project. Uh, I talked about research skills. I had to think a lot while doing all the things, how to make the setup, and what drawbacks could I face. So had to think all of that. I had to communicate a lot with my peers, with my supervisors, even with the while taking the interview. I collaborated even with some experts for making the setup. That way, I developed that skill as well. So this is my product evaluation. I sent out the form to some experts, and they wrote back to me. And so I kept the form in 5 rubrics, which were there in my success criteria. Which was, would you use this for your home? Is it cost efficient? Does it adhere its function? Is it environmental friendly? And does the plants which are grown in this look healthy? So these were the results which I got, and I think they are pretty impressive. I used a lot of sources, as I mentioned earlier. These are all of them, and I would like to give credit to all of them for helping me, even in the interviews as well as the websites. This is a glance of my process, and I would like all of you to see it. Thank you, everyone. You have been a great audience, and I would like to thank you all for listening to me. I would even like to thank my supervisor and my coordinator for helping me throughout the project. I have my project here live with me. I would like to show you all it. So this is my project. As you can see, I've made a setup using plastic bottles. So it's environmental friendly, and it does not cost too much. So as you can see, I have grown them. This is fenugreek, and as you can see, the roots have also come out and the plants are growing healthily. I'd like to thank you all once again for being such a great audience.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm Vidur from Ella Green School, and my question is: can we grow all types of plants through hydroponics?
Grow all types. Yes, actually, you can grow all types of vegetables and fruits from the hydroponic setup. You can even grow flowers if you like, but the hydroponic setup is mainly where you give nutrition to the plants. So I don't think growing plants will be growing flowery plants would be a nice option, but you can always go for vegetables and fruits in it. Nobody likes to be lonely. This may sound a line from a pop song, but it's the universal truth. Mental illness is now accepted in adults, but what about teens? Let us hear from Zaina on the same topic.
Greetings everyone, my name is Zaina and today I'm going to talk to you about my personal project journey. Reading had a huge impact on my life and I was always enticed by books and what they had to offer. Writing was also one of my hobbies and I loved writing in my journal, my blog or just some short stories. As I grew up, I developed an interest in impactful novels, books that touched your soul, and I was amazed by how the authors knew just the right words to use. It fascinated me, so I decided to use this project to develop my language skills and explore how literature can be used to convey emotions, feelings, and create an impact on readers. I had a fair amount of experience in writing, but writing a story that left the audience curious and created an impact on them was a really tough task. During the time of the pandemic, I read several articles about mental health illnesses and the acceptance of mental health as an illness, and also a lot about the third SDG goal, which is good health and well being, and how good health not only includes our physical health but also the state of our mind. But I realized that all these articles were based on mental health in adults, and there was not much talk about teenagers. This inspired me to choose my product as a novelette that focuses on chronic loneliness and anxiety in teenagers. And as my target audience were children between the age of 10 to 18, I had to make my novelette one that would effectively communicate my purpose as well as keep the readers entertained. Before I landed on this topic, I explored numerous other areas. Like at the beginning of the project, in the first month, I was working on an animated short film on giver burnout. As I started working on my product and creating my timeline and using SWOT analysis to analyze my topic, I realized that this product was too complicated to be carried out within that time frame. After discussing with my supervisor and coordinators, I decided to choose the novelette as my final topic. Next slide. As I mentioned before, my escalating interest in reading and writing literature supported my goal, along with my encounter with other teenagers who had suffered from anxiety and depression, some who were still suffering from these issues, and also a few personal experiences. These experiences really helped me characterize my protagonist and create her identity. This is how I chose identities and relationships as my global context for this project. Giving my book the perfect ending took longer than I had planned, and I was not even able to give it the perfect ending. There were obviously a lot of errors in it. But the longer it took, it disrupted my timeline, and I wasn't able to adhere to it for the most part. Like because of the because of not being able to finalize my book, it took longer to start the publishing process, and I was not able to finish it in time. And this really helped me understand the importance of time management and how to organize my time while effectively completing my task, as I had to struggle to make sure my product also adhered to my success criteria. My success criteria focused on three major aspects: function, language, and aesthetics. Function focused on the storyline, the plot, and the personality development of my characters, while language focused on how logical my writing was, whether my purpose was clear or not, and the fluency of my produced text. Aesthetics was basically the cover, back cover, and front cover designs. It was at first I thought that adhering to my success criteria would not be a humongous task, but as I started writing the novelette, I realized that it was really tough to organize my thoughts and condense everything I wanted to say in those 50 to 60 pages. And this was one of the biggest challenges I faced throughout this project. The first section in our personal project cycle is inquiring. And since I had minimal knowledge about the psychological aspects of depression and anxiety, it was really important for me to conduct a thorough research. To make sure my research was effective, I used relevant sites like World Health Organization, United Nations, and articles from The Guardian, Forbes, etc. And for the language part, I applied for courses about how to properly structure your dialogues, how to use literary devices, literary conventions, etc. This was something I had learned over my MYP years as well, but I thought courses would really help me polish those skills. I also interacted informally and formally using a survey with my target audience. It really helped me to understand what their opinion was on the topic, how they perceived the problem, and what their understanding of the problem was. In order to improve my language, I also interviewed a few experts who had written novels about mental health, teenage depression, and personal identity. In order to make sure my research was even more effective, I used the CRAP method of source evaluation. First, I made a focused research or inquiry question. Then I summarized all the important points I had collected under that inquiry question. Then I used currency, relevancy, authority, accuracy, and purpose in order to evaluate that information. This evaluation method really tested my information literacy and critical thinking skills. Speaking of skills, there were a lot of skills that I developed throughout this project. One of the main skills I developed was creative thinking, as writing an abstract novel required a lot of creative thinking and proper use of words. As I mentioned before, I interacted with my target audience and I communicated with them effectively in order to understand their point of view. My self-management wasn't at its best throughout this project, as I was not able to manage my time effectively and complete my tasks on time. My final product is a novelette of around 50 to 60 pages that that focuses on major issues like chronic loneliness, as well as daily struggles like peer pressure and societal expectations among adolescents. In order to evaluate my product, I shared the ebook with a few of my peers, a few friends who came under the target audience, and my teachers, and a few experts. Using their evaluation and my self-reflection, I evaluated my product against the success criteria. And I think my product was a success. Let me give you a glimpse of my book. This is my final product, and it's a book of 52 pages. Thank you so much for, as an IB learner, I have learned that acknowledging the sites I refer is really important for academic integrity. So I made sure to use the proper method of citation and acknowledge all the sources I referred and used throughout this project. These are a few of those sources. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Zaina. Just to let the audience know that Zaina's book will be very soon available on Amazon. Are there any questions for Zaina?
What is the inspiration for the novel?
Well, like I mentioned before, I really enjoy reading and writing, and I feel that literature is one of the best ways to communicate a message in a creative and innovative way. What inspired me to write this novel was actually another novel that I read named The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It was also related to the similar topic, but I felt that that book was really heavy and had some emotional stuff in it that normal teenagers would not understand. This is what inspired me to create a creative and abstract novel that teenagers the age of 10 years and 18 years would understand the purpose as well.
I take this opportunity to thank all the attendees for being such a good audience, and the inputs and your valuable suggestions will definitely benefit us in the future. And I also would